I know a lot of independent musicians, and the first thing they'll say is, I want to get signed. And you want to get signed because you're going to get a better budget for promotion. You're going to have the freedom. You don't have to do your day job anymore. You're going to have the freedom to deliver your craft because they give you your advance to. But what comes with that is the record company is saying, yeah, I'm taking 40%.
Hello and welcome to Grind, Hustle, Repeat, conversations around creativity and culture. I'm your host, Neodate Evans, and this is the show where we talk to creative entrepreneurs and discuss the ups and downs of their creative journeys. And hopefully by sharing, it provides guidance for others. Now, my guest in this episode has spent over 30 years in the culture and media sector, working for some of the world's foremost media organizations, including the BBC and Premier Media Group, earning himself 6 Sony Radio Academy Awards and a prestigious Rose d'Or nomination. He is the founder of leading digital content brand Unedited, working with companies as diverse as Audible, Ford, Spotify, and Havas London. But what LinkedIn will not tell you is that he's one of the people responsible for my voiceover career. But more than all of this, one of the things that makes him really special is the fact that he shares the same graying beard pattern as me.
This is the look for 2021.
You know
this
it.
Is the
I'm
look.
I'm in the company of greatness. Bernard Achampong, welcome to Grind, Hustle, Repeat.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. And thank you for having this space, because I've been learning so much and picking up so much from some of the other greats that you've kind of given them a space to showcase and chat. So, and I love the fact that it is just chat. You will hear all kinds of stuff,
Sometimes we just go off tangent. And
Look, when you hear that great producers are sampling dildos, you know you need to look up the episode. That's when you know it's real talk.
I think that will be one of the forever, I didn't know where that story was going. I did not know where that story was going. And then when he was like, yeah, bro, do you know what it was? I was like, yeah, wasn't expecting that.
That's what it is. That's what's happening in life right now. You just got to work with what you can work with. Anyway.
For the uninitiated, tell us a little bit more about what it is that you do at Unedited.
Okay, so what Unedited is, well, you've kind of hinted to where I started. So I was at the BBC for years. I was at BBC, 13, 14 years, on and off. There's a period where I'd go off, come back, freelance, all that kind of stuff. But what I discovered, and this is no slight on the BBC, what I discovered was I was working to someone else's agendas. Like, even when I'm able to put my ideas forward, maybe the budget's out of my control. And maybe there's something where there's a bit more budget so you can play, well, the editorial is out of your control. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I was working around it was around the time of the Mark Duggan incident. Okay. And I say incident because that's a whole different conversation. Yeah. As I was coming into work, I'm excited in the morning. I'm coming into work on my social media timeline, people who look like me and resonate with me and are, having the kind of conversations I have. They're talking about revolution. They're talking about, look, this is police brutality. This is an uprising. This is unfair. A different kind of conversation to when I walked into the BBC. It was just a different kind of conversation. People weren't talking about the history, the background, the police brutality. I mean, now we're talking about George Floyd and the whole history of police inequality in the way that they treat people. But that wasn't a conversation that was being had at all. We were talking about, the destruction of public property, feral youth, rioting, and how this rioting is spreading out of control and it's unjustified, and, how much taxpayers. And I was like, I'm not saying that that's not happening, mm-hmm. but there's another part to this story. Mm-hmm. And I realized very quickly, for all the awards that I've managed to get, for all the moves I'm making within the BBC, why aren't I using those same skill sets to tell stories that affect people like me directly. So that's essentially what Unedited is about. And originally, Unedited was going to be called Uncensored because we didn't want a voice to be filtered through anyone else. But then we realized, people might just take that the wrong way. So we went for Unedited, so that, as you know, in the broadcast organization, you have editors.
Yeah.
Well, we don't want an editor to stand between you and your story. We want you to be able to tell your story as best you can. So that's what Unedited is about. So we started 2017 in earnest as an audio production company. Before, I was trying to do the whole 360 thing, a video, and if you go onto Vimeo, you'll find some of the old stuff there. But there was something that just wasn't connecting, and it was Isaac Dentsu from, I think he's at Google now. Isaac said to me, "You know what? You're coming to me with these great ideas as a TV producer, but every time I speak to people about you, they talk about audio. So why are you trying to?" And I don't think it was being disrespectful. I think it was just saying, you've got strength in this lane. Why don't you stick to that? And so I was like, okay, I'll just go and do audio. But then that's what I know. That's what I'm passionate about. That's what I've been doing for years. So why don't I make a lane in that space? And the rest is literally
history.
Yeah, history.
So, tell us a little bit about some of the productions that you produce via Unedited.
Gosh. So we just finished a series called Coming In From the Cold, which is the definitive history of Black football players in the English game.
Oh, wow.
Now, an amazing story. So people like Arthur Wharton, who's a fellow Ghanaian, who came over to learn to be a minister. He came over to be a Methodist minister, and then they discovered he was fast and strong and he could play all these different kinds of sports. So he became, the first officially recognized Black football player. But then you go through the generations of football players and you realize that they're all striving for one thing, which is to represent their country. And then you ask the question, so what does representing your country mean? Because there are people like Jack Leslie who were picked to play for their country because of their goals and their stats. And then someone went, yeah, but he's a bit tanned. And then all of a sudden, boom, he's off the list. He doesn't appear. So the story goes through generations. And what we discovered was actually representing your country isn't just wearing that 3-line shirt. Representing your country means the sport that you play and you love gives you the platform to be able to do the kind of things that people like Sterling and Rashford are doing now, to stand up for the country itself, to be able to campaign through your sport.
I love that.
Yeah, great. So that's just been done. We had an amazing story earlier last year of a scientist called Peter 2.0. Well, his name's Peter Scott Morgan. Podcast is Peter 2.0. And Peter wanted to turn himself into a cyborg because he'd been diagnosed with motor neuron disease. This is the most amazing story, like every level of the story. So Peter is a scientist, and he has this, when you hear him speak, he has just this bravado about him, like gung-ho, he's ready for life. And he has this motor neuron disease. And it's like, okay, I'm a scientist. What do scientists do when they have problems? They fix it with technology. I'm a robotic scientist. I understand AI. We can get this done. So as my body is failing, I'll just upgrade it with technology. And you're like, huh? And then it breaks it down to you in a sense that, you wear glasses, right? Yeah. Well, you wear glasses because your eyes are failing. Glasses are a technology. People have hearing aids. People use, walking sticks and Zimmer frames. That's all technology. And all he's doing is using more advanced technologies to really get.
Yeah, it's just the graduation.
It's just levels.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay. And then you follow his story as he starts to make these changes and the setbacks. And this is the thing that's really deep in the story. So part of, the director that was filmed, because we had, it was also filmed for a Channel 4 documentary. And the director asked him, where does this passion come from? Because it can't just be technology, right? And Peter says, well, for 40 years, I've been living as a gay man. And I've been being told I'm not a man because I live my life this way. So this is just another challenge. Am I not a man if I use technology to, I was just like, wow.
There's levels.
Yeah, we just had a whale of a time. I think with this Peter 2.0
Mm-hmm.
and the dark web, which I did for Audible,
Mm-hmm.
10-part series on the dark web,
Mm-hmm.
those are two stories that really pushed me out of my comfort zone
Mm-hmm.
as an audio producer. Yeah, people send you the black stuff to do, and people, the rise of Afrobeats, people know me for that. But it's when you do something like this and you're like, wow.
Okay, this is different now. I'm out.
This is.
But that's where the growth happens. Growth happens. So in terms of platforms, because you mentioned that with Peter 2.0, that was also filmed for Channel 4. And then you mentioned you just done one for Audible. Generally, where do a lot of the productions that you work on, where are they disseminated? Is it mainly Audible, Spotify, and how does that work for the creators that are creating?
Yeah, it depends on who we're working with. So obviously when we do Audible exclusive, it goes through Audible. But most of the stuff, we make sure there is a window on our website. So we put something on our website, and if you come to the website, there's always a link. But, stuff's on Spotify, stuff's on Apple. Peter 2.0 was in the Apple Science top 10 in the science chart. So that was on Apple. Audible, people host stuff on, because we still do day-to-day podcasts. We still do, regular podcasts as you would. We did, I really enjoyed working on Kojo's podcast. It's a shame that doesn't exist anymore.
Which one's that?
Nothing to Declare.
Okay.
Kojo and Teef had a podcast which was ridiculous. It was riotous.
Mm-hmm.
And what we wanted to do with that podcast was really push all the editorial boundaries that still remain legal. The best way to describe it is a post-Watershed podcast.
Yes, yeah.
Because my background, as you know, a lot of the stuff I was doing was BBC, very, straight, very, everything radio edit. So we thought, what happens if we push it to the other side, but make sure that everything is compliant, everything is legal? So yeah, but we had to kind of pull that down because of, the man went into the public eye. we had to just take some things out of the way.
Fair enough. So if I have an idea and I come to you, say, Bernard, I got this idea for this, let's say audio documentary.
Yeah.
I want to get to the nitty gritty. I want to talk about money. Like, how does it work? How do I end up getting my podcast, my show out there, but getting paid as well?
Yeah. So my first question is, do you want to make money?
Yes.
Because if you don't want to make money, there's so many ways of making it work.
Yeah.
If you want to make money, you have to bring audience. And maybe the first thing you do is not make a podcast, but grow your audience some other way. So you can grow your audience by creating a social media brand, which gets into conversations and starts to bring people to your brand. Then when you've got 10,000 type followers, when you put your podcast out, it's easy for you to syndicate it and have it promoted through your audience. But if you're starting from scratch, there are 3 ways in which you can make money from your podcast. 1, advertising. So people embed advertising into your podcast, dynamic insertions. Most of the time, it's going to depend on the number of listeners you've got. And if you're not getting 20,000 downloads a month, it's not really working for you as an income stream. Second way to do it is to get your supporters to pay for it, right? So if you listen, Patreon, or send us £50, whatever it is, your direct listeners will directly invest in the product. Then there is sponsorship. Now, sponsorship is when you get a brand to come alongside and say, I like what you're doing. Here's X amount. Sometimes they'll do it for the whole series. Sometimes they'll do it for a particular episode. And all those kind of partnerships are happening at the moment. But let's go back to the second one, because the second one is one of the ways that we feel this industry is going to go.
Okay.
It's going to go directly to audience-led. And the reason why I say that is you think about it a bit like a record company. My partner, Andrew, this is his thinking, is like, think of podcasting as a record company. When you put out a series, that's an album.
Right.
Now, if you're planning an album, you're going to know which ones your singles are, right? You're going to say, well, this one's the one I've got to get Busta Rhymes on. This one's the one that if I get, Heady One on as a feature, that's going to blow. So you pick 3 or 4 episodes that you make your flagship. and those are the ones that you promote.
Right. Okay.
And then your other 12 episodes for that season will flow through the energy that's got from your lead singles, right?
I like that angle. Okay.
Yeah. And so, you know, if you're doing this, for instance, and you know, if you got Idris on here, it's going to blow. No disrespect to anyone else on here, but you know, you get Idris to sit down for an hour.
Yeah.
Then that's the one you're going to promote.
Of course.
With all due respect, I'm not going to promote Bernard de Champon's episode because people don't really know who he is. Right? And so if you think about it that way, then you start to think, how else do record companies make money from artists? Well, touring. Now, currently, the touring world is a bit left.
Yes.
When we have the real world back out again, there are ways. There are lots of festivals, music festivals, as well as podcast festivals specific, but there are also associated festival events. So we've just done a series with a car brand, with Ford. Now, there are many car festivals around the world, car conferences. We can pick a stage and say, right, Ford, if you work with us, we're going to showcase the podcast on a stage at some car showroom, at some car conference.
Yeah.
And you think of these ways of getting the brand out.
Gotcha.
People come, people pay. You know, you do a local, right, we're going to do a northern circuit. We're going to hit 4 pubs, charge people £10 each, bam, 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 collect the money. So all these methods are ways that we've been running the music industry as independents for years.
Yeah, yeah.
Why don't we use the same tactics for podcasts? It's audio content, music and speech is audio content. Okay. So
it works. Yeah, I like that outlook. I consume a lot of material in terms of, you know, creators and whatnot have you, but I've never heard anybody come at it at that angle. But when you said it, it really does make a lot of sense. But something that kind of just also comes to mind, because also looking at, so yes, let's look at the music industry, draw parallels and take the good stuff, but then also how do we avoid the pitfalls as well? So for example, you know, one of the biggest issues, I guess, at the moment within the music industry and with creators in general is about ownership. So, you know, if people have been listening to these shows, I've spoke about it before, I'll say it again. I'm a massive believer in ownership. And I think that a lot of the time we underestimate and undervalue ourselves in order to get a check, you know, when in fact, those that are paying us, those are the ones that are making the real bank. And they're making real money from our talents. So how do we take the good parts and then ensure that we don't have the same pitfalls when it comes, especially when it comes to things like ownership?
Yeah, it's a catch-22, isn't it? You know, I want to create my own stuff and own my own stuff, but I also want my stuff to go on a platform that lots of people could get access to it. And that relationship of getting it to a wider audience compared to me holding onto my own stuff is that marriage that you've got to negotiate and see where that works for you. You know, I know a lot of independent musicians, and, you know, the first thing they'll say is, I want to get signed. And you want to get signed because you're going to get a better budget for promotion. You're going to have the freedom. You don't have to do your day job anymore. You're going to have the freedom to deliver your craft because they give you your advance to. But what comes with that is the record company saying, yeah, I'm taking 40%, or I'm going to get in between you and the distributor. And so whatever the distributor gets, I get to deal with that rather than you going directly to the distributor and owning 100% of the royalties that comes from that. And so there's a whole space in there. And I think you've got to just recognize that there is something that comes with getting wider distribution that you as an artist have got to see value in and be prepared to pay for.
Okay.
Imagine, you know, I come up with the best, I don't know, super malt alternative, right? Now I can sell it from my house, but anyone who wants it has to come to my house to get it. Now, if I get a deal with someone like Sainsbury's, then I know it's going to go into every single Sainsbury's. But Sainsbury's, for that benefit, is going to take their percentage. And I've got to say, well, yes, I can keep all of the 100 that I sell from my yard, or I could take a smaller percentage of the 100,000 that Sainsbury's is going to.
Okay, so you'll have to humor me for a second, because I really want to try and understand the role that the internet plays and how the internet has changed the environment, how it's changed the landscape. Because if we take your Sainsbury's example, okay, so yes, if I am in my house and I want people to buy my new brand of Supermalt, they have to come to my house. But if I go to Sainsbury's, I'm exposed to more people. However, if I use this new website, I can ship it through, get it out to people via this website. Yes, obviously I need to put a lot of effort and focus into marketing and whatnot have you, but it's not doable. It can be achieved. People have done it. So why then would I then still look at Sainsbury's as a more viable option?
Well, if we go back to the music industry example, physical sales and streaming are different. And when I say they're different, I don't just mean they're different because one is physical and one is streaming. The way that the record companies deal with you on your physical product and your digital product are different. So, so when people try to make comparisons about, oh, well, I've got, 100,000 streams and I'm not getting the same amount of money as I would get from CD, that's because the record industry values, I'll use that word, values physical CDs in a different way to the way they value streams. So it's not comparable.
But then also, sorry to cut it for a second. What? Because obviously, the way that we consume music has changed.
Yes.
So whilst and I will categorically say this, whilst I fully do not agree with the amount that artists are paid when it comes per stream, that's the way we're consuming music. So should the energy not be in ensuring that the artist is getting more per stream rather than still keeping the price of the physical product that people aren't really buying anymore? Or if they are, I don't know.
Yeah. And I think artists need to be going into these deals clued up. Artists need to be going into these deals and saying, well, actually, the deal that you've offered me has a certain amount for physical sales, but actually, that's not where our business is.
Yeah.
So let's cut a different deal. Now, when you're starting as an independent artist, like you say, sometimes we just take the check and we want to go and floss. But actually, if you listen to the kind of people who've been in the industry for a while, they'll be able to say, well, hold on a sec. And that's one of the things that I find really challenging about when one generation of, say, creatives don't speak to the next generation, because you miss a whole gap of knowledge. The people will tell you, we know from time immemorial, when people like Prince are having problems with the record companies, you just done 2 mixtapes, big on SoundCloud, walking into a record company, you are not going to get a better deal than someone like Prince. So you've got to learn how to negotiate these things. For me, the thing with the internet is it's made access easier. But what we haven't taken into account is the business, the legal, the rights exploitation, the copyright laws behind all of that haven't caught up as quickly as we would like them to. So as I say, streaming is dealt with in a completely different way to physical sales. Record companies have about 40% of what you make from streams, which is like, but this stuff's already there, and they'll say, well, it's for the promotion, it's for the fact that you're on the same label as Beyonce, so there's some kudos, all of that stuff, and we've been able to get some money to give you the advance to go off and do what you. So you've got to kind of weigh all of that up and say, do I really want to go into that independent route, or do I want to make money out of this? And then if that's how I want to do it, then this is the relationship. This is similar to the first question you asked about podcasts. Do you want to make money? Because if you want to make money, then there are certain ways you can make money in this space.
So then let me bring Joe Budden into the conversation.
Hey,
Joe Budden, like, I feel like Joe is somebody that he gets it. Obviously, he had his deal with Spotify. He left at the end of last year, stating he wasn't happy with the deal that they were offering, and a lot of the conversation he was having wasn't just about the money. He's like, I want to see the data.
Yeah.
And they weren't even open to letting him see that data. And then obviously, you know, recently he's announced his deal with Patreon. And I think what I found really interesting about that was also he's also going to be a part of the company as, I think it's
offered equity,
head of creator equity. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like
you all need to be making those kind of moves, man.
I'm like,
don't worry about the check, just give me equity.
It's dope. And I think he's set such an example.
Yeah.
So what do you feel about Joe and the Patreon model? And you know, do you think this is the way going forward? I will start by saying, whilst I love all of that, one thing that worries me from the consumer perspective is that if we're going down this route, so I pay my Sky, I pay my Netflix. The children have made us do Disney Plus. So am I really now gonna, if I want to go to the highest tier, it's $25, lowest tier $5. Am I gonna add that on? And then if I'm listening to Grind, Hustle, Repeat, and then they start charging for like, so as the consumer, how many of these subscriptions am I supposed to have? Because at some point you say enough.
Yeah, enough. Yeah. And Joe is hoping that you will value his content enough to say, yeah, £25 a month makes sense to me. Or you go to where you think you will get the most of that content and have to catch up later. So like you, I looked at that Disney Plus and I thought, there ain't no kids in my house. I ain't buying it. There is no compelling for me. I'm going to have to hear about The Mandalorian from someone else, because I pay for my Spotify, I pay for my Netflix, I pay for that extra. I'm not going to get that value back from it. So when you start having these direct consumer pay models like Patreon is, you then put the onus on the consumer to think, is this really worth it? And that's the risk. You either jump into a very safe space where you're getting a regular check, everything's been taken care of. And yes, you do want to see the numbers, but actually some people say, well, just do what you need to do. And that's in every industry, Or you say, well, I'm going to jump into a space where I feel quite exposed. And you're in that situation, like the independent artist saying, give me £10 for my CD.
Right.
That's the same mold. Just because it's digital, it's that thing. It's that guy outside the club saying, if you like hip hop, buy my CD.
And so really then, I guess the new landscape / marketplace becomes all of these creators hustling to say to your consumers, your £25 / dollars / euros, whatever, is better spent over here than over there. And I guess it's down to us to decide, okay, squash Disney Plus. I'm going to pay for Joe and vice versa then.
Yeah. So there are things that I'm now watching Netflix and noticing that things that I would have watched on the BBC are now appearing on Netflix. So I'm starting to make a choice. Well, hold on a sec. Do I just use my BBC account or do I use my Netflix account? And hold on, Lupin is now on Netflix. So, okay, there's other content I'm getting from here. There might be programs on one particular platform that you will pay for because you strongly believe in, and it really becomes about value. As a customer, you think, do I really value that? Now, if you're in a privileged position like Joe, who has built up an international brand, which is bringing in numbers, makes sense all day. However, if you're someone in the middle, maybe in the bottom, who's just starting, you might not be able to even get 100 people to pay you the £10 a month to keep running. So you might want to, depending on where you are,
because that was going to be my next question, was like let's bring it back to the UK specifically, and UK creators. Is there really a future for, let's say, somebody like Kelechi? Like Kelechi is, she's like become a warrior, and she does a lot of work for us and speaks on issues that a lot of people don't speak on, and she's brave enough to speak on these things. Now, Kelechi rightly should be remunerated for for her energy.
Yeah.
But are the numbers big enough
Mm.
for somebody like Kelechi to do Patreon and it be something that's like actually making a difference to her life?
I think that depends on Kelechi, because I think she has a very valued voice. Now, if she moves to a Patreon model, it's whether she feels whatever she gets, because she throws herself at the mercy of the audience. You know, a like on social media doesn't necessarily mean that people are going to put your hand in their pocket and give you the money.
Absolutely.
So she might be getting a lot of people who like what she does, appreciates what she does. And then once she says, well, give me £10 a month, people are like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, you're cool. I'll support you. I'll retweet your post. And every creative in the UK, every creative has experienced that, you know.
I think that's a mindset though. Like,
I think it is.
Because I know a lot of the time we compare ourselves to our American cousins and we say that they're, you know, slightly ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
Think we're going to catch up, or do you think
No, I think it's a perception, because we only hear about the stories of those Americans who have made it to a profile where they can be international. But I promise you, there are people making content every day, who can't get their brethren to give them £5 to make it. The amount of people who have put on gigs and be like, yeah, my friend said they're going to come. And you're looking at a half empty room and you're like, where's my brethren? He said he was going to come. There's a difference between support and support. People will, any creative out here who has tried to raise money from their art, who is listening to this knows, there will be people who will support you and there will be people who will support you. There'll be people who, when your album comes out, will put money, go into their PayPal and pay for that album. There are people who'll be like, oh yeah, I'll get it. Yeah, I heard it, but you know, I'll get it. And there's a difference. And so when you go on that direct consumer model, you are taking that risk. And sometimes that's why people go, actually, I can't rely on the audience yet.
Right.
Till I build up a bigger brand. I can build up a bigger portfolio, a bit more international. And I always say to people who talk to me about podcasts in the UK, what's the international aspect of your podcast? Because if you can get it out there in the world, do it.
Right.
It's not just UK, do it. If it's relatable, do it.
Yeah, I guess that's the thing as well, because, you know, it is thinking international and not really thinking local anymore, because for somebody in South Africa, or wherever to tune in to what you're doing and what you're saying, there's no barriers anymore. Yeah. Going back to unedited, let's say 5 years from now, like, where would you hope to see?
Boy, so look, unedited is about content, full stop. At the beginning of the journey, we started with being able to tell people's stories. So we're already looking at what that looks like outside of audio. We're working with the BBC at the moment on a children's TV commission, working with a couple of writers on some, let's say, drama projects, right? So we're trying to make sure that we tell stories. We are a storytelling brand, and audio is something that we do because my background and Andrew's background is strong in audio. You know, when we started off, there was a team of 3 of us, myself, Andrew, and Cass, and our background was all audio. But we're not going to stop there. Wherever that medium is to tell those stories, we will do. And we keep meeting incredible people who will come up to us and say, hey, I like that podcast. I want to do a TV version of that. Or, you know, I like that idea. Have you considered animation?
So obviously you mentioned like some of the projects that you're working on, the children's show with the BBC. Have you considered a future for unedited where in a way you create your own platform? And the reason why I bring that up is, I don't know if you've been across this new issue with Candice Braithwaite and obviously Candice got the situation wrong, and thought she was, you know, there was 2 different projects going on, and some people were saying the wife was in Clubhouse, listening in a room in Clubhouse, And a lot of people were saying to Candice, well, if that's the case, why don't you do your own thing, your own platform? And I think there was maybe like a little bit of a reluctancy in terms of going independent route.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the time, and rightly so, because these are big organizations. You like the idea of your show being on BBC or Channel 4. But then there's like a stigma of saying, I've just done a documentary, head over to YouTube to my channel and watch it. It's like it doesn't hold the same gravitas. Is that something that you think we can pull back?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for us, you know, for Unedited, we took a view very early on that we didn't want to be a standalone brand. We wanted to be in the mix of what was happening. Look, Maggi seasoning is not great by itself. It needs to be in other things. And so that's what we want to do, because it's not just for us. It's not just about content. It's about conversations. You know, if we're working with the BBC, we're working with Spotify, we're working with Audible, we can have conversations in those spaces. We can put stories in those spaces rather than say, well, this is, for want of a better word, the ghetto of unedited stories. You have to come over here and you need a special pass. No, we want the stories to be right in the middle of where everything else is happening, so that people go, oh, these guys are interesting. I wouldn't normally have come to their stuff, but okay, it's here. So we've talked about getting an app with all our stuff on. Like, well, we've got a website, so if people find the website, then we can drive them back. But as a principle, we want to be in the mix. We want to be on the Netflixes. We want to be on the Spotifys and on the Audible platforms, so that people can engage with us, not because they've come out to find us, but they came across us.
Okay. So what would be your like big piece of advice to creators in terms of creating stuff that's actually, you know, it's great if you're passionate about something and you create something and you're just putting it out there, but also it's valid if you want to earn from your creativity. What would you say would be your one or two pieces of advice to people to get into that lane?
I think there is a period where you genuinely have to work your passion project, your creativity. There's a period where you have to work it for all it's worth, but there is also a period where you have to let it simmer. And I say that because sometimes, I remember there was a point in trying to make unedited work, I completely missed it. I was trying to get too much out of it. I was trying to put all my energy into it, but I was almost suffocating it from allowing it to grow.
Okay.
And I think sometimes it's going to be your side chick. Sometimes your main 9 to 5 is going to be your 9 to 5. And you're going to have to give it space to grow and stand back. And there's nothing wrong with doing a 9 to 5, because you can learn a lot from your 9 to 5, especially if it's in a similar industry. Yeah, I want to find out all the forms and everything that is around running a business in media, which is why I went to Premiere, because when I got to Premiere, I knew how to run a station from the top level. I knew how to run a content business from the top level. So now I can run my own without worrying about, well, what do I do with payroll and how do I mentor people and what do we do about disciplinaries and all of that kind of stuff. And when you start to run a business, until you've got, you know, that protection around the creative side, all the other stuff will, you know, having to find tax codes. And when I had to do my first grievance policy for working,
this is the real nitty gritty that nobody thinks about.
I had to write a grievance policy, and I'm like, hold on a sec. I'm a nice guy. Who's gonna be grieved about working with me? But you've got to write it down, and you've got to have a process. If someone has a grievance with someone else that they're working with, who are they going to go to? If someone has a grievance with you as the boss, who are they going to go to? Do you have HR? How does HR work? And you've got to work all of that out. If I did that at a time when all I wanted to do was just make audio, I would have killed the dream. So you need to get to a point where there's almost such a drive. If you're starting to take days off from your daytime job to do your passion, that's when it's time to go.
Fair enough.
When you need to take more than your holiday, that's when it's time to go. That's when it's time to start thinking.
So changing gears a little bit.
By the way, I'm not saying I did that. I'm just saying.
Disclaimer. I mean,
Yes,
obviously,
disclaimer.
I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, because I would never do anything like that when
No,
I
of course not.
was in employment. How was last year for you?
Last year was real. That's the only way I can. Yeah, last year was real. 2020 started one way. Ended a completely different way. Like, beginning of 2021, I was employed. I was the head of a station. I was about to get married. 2021, whole 180. I'm running my own business. I'm not employed by someone else. I'm still single. I have my health, and I'm actually doing better financially. And I know it's not about that, but sometimes when you look at your bank account, and go, okay,
dude, it's about that. I think sometimes we have a reluctancy to talk about these things.
And I say that not because I'm flowing in money and blah, blah, blah. But I think when you know that it's your own money, you spend it differently.
You absolutely do. I have a very similar story to yours. So when I finally left full-time employment, I got made redundant, and it came at the absolute perfect time. I remember sitting in the meeting, and they were like, "We're really sorry, we have to." And in my head, I'm like, "Yeah." And I say it was the perfect time because literally maybe 2 weeks before that is when I had been signed on to the continuity team.
Right.
BBC. So I was like, I'm leaving, but I have a little bit of security.
Yeah.
And I had also, because I had been planning it from before, when I got my private hire license. So I also had the Uber as a backup, like,
right.
When you just need to make that money.
Yep.
So
Cash flow is important.
So all of these things were in place. So by the time I left, I had the BBC, I had Uber, and other little bits of voiceover pieces. My first month on my own, I made more than double my salary.
Right.
And that, for me, I think that was such a powerful indicator of, because you begin to, there are moments, and I still have them now, where you're like, what am I doing, man? Like, maybe I need to go get myself a 9 to 5. But I always go back to that, because I'm like, no, it can be done, but nothing works unless you do. And so I guess when you're in a 9 to 5, and as I did, I could go in and I could get away with not doing some things, like redirect some work and whatever. But now, if I don't do something, it's only ever going to come back.
It's on you.
I want to ask you 2 questions before you go, and I ask them to everybody, and it's more like a reflective thing, looking back on your life in terms of everything to this point, your career, personal life, and what have you. What do you think has been the best advice that you've ever been given? Do you know what I love at this point is whenever I ask it, it's the silence that ensues after.
It's a silence. Because you think of all the other conversations that you've had. You know what? There was a really powerful thing. You know what? I'm going to share it because it's you. There's a really powerful thing that I did about 7 years ago. My dad got really ill. It was borderline. Thanks be to God, he made it through. But I realized I didn't have the kind of relationship that I wanted with him. And if he'd gone, I would have missed out on it. So I had a chance to have a conversation with my dad. And, I don't know what you're like. You build up stuff about your dad, right? My African dad, blah, blah, blah. And then one day I just put myself in his shoes. I'm like, so this guy brought up 3 children. He was under the age of 40 to do that. living in this country. He wasn't working with computers. Everything he had to do worked with his hands. That was the time, right? In a world where, you know, us melanated folks weren't really treated in the same way as we are now, for better or for worse. And I put myself in his shoes and I'm like, for all my thoughts about what I could be doing better with my dad could be doing better with me, I haven't actually watched him in a sense like, damn, you did all that for me to be here. Okay, I need to respect that. Because everything else that's going on in the back of my mind pales into insignificance, because if he hadn't done all of those things, I wouldn't be here. And I had a great chat with my dad, and my dad said, you know, I've always been proud of you because you have always been what you wanted to be. And I think what I get from him in that was, I've always been a humble guy, right? I've never been the one that tries to, if I don't have 500 pounds, I'm not buying 500 pound watches. And do you know what I mean? So he's seen that. If, you know, I can't go somewhere, I'm not trying to use, do you remember back in the day when people used to try and use fake accents, man? Yeah. Yeah, you know me? Yeah, man. Yeah. No, that was never me. And I think he's really appreciated the fact that I've just, you know, I've embraced who I am, my African heritage, my Ghanaian surname, which people find difficult to pronounce, but I've owned all of that and been real about it. And I think for me, that's a thing that if I was going to give anyone advice, be real with yourself, because you can chase other people's ideals. But when it comes down to it, perfect example of this is unedited. When it comes down to it, you know, audio, B, you've got awards for audio. Why are you trying to chase TV? At least at that stage.
Yeah. Not to say that it can't be done. It can.
No, but that was your lane right there, was audio. It was all in your hands. I don't know many producers who have 6 Sony awards. So why are you trying to chase? And I was trying to chase, you know, my big thing was, well, everyone's going into this new digital blah, blah, blah. And so, no, do audio. That's you. You don't have to have a YouTube channel. You don't have to have a TV development company. You don't, do you. And once we really own once we really own that, and sorry, another thought came to my hand. I was like, do I share it? Yeah.
Go for it.
I'm also learning that people are people, and you've just got to allow them to be them. You don't have to try and change them. You don't have to try and judge them. Whoever it is that's talking to you, let them be them. And just, it's fine for them to be different. If you want to walk together and it's not working, all right, that's them. That's different. It's okay. You're different. You're okay. But sometimes we put too much energy in trying to engage in other people's stuff. And why can't they be more like me? And I do things this way. No, you be you, I'll be you. When we're cool, we're cool. When we're not, it's peace.
That's it. And it's learning that the two states can exist. You know, you're doing what you're doing. I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm not really into what you're doing, but it doesn't need to affect anything. Just you're over there doing that. I'm over here doing this. Thank you for sharing that.
No worries.
My last question is Bernard Achampong at 16 years of age.
Yep.
What advice would you give to him?
Stop being so fearful, man. Stop being so fearful. Oh man.
The fear one is a common one.
Yeah.
It makes me think that a lot of, well, not even think, I know that there are a lot of 16-year-olds out there just fronting.
We have this, I don't know, this perception that the whole world is going to cave in if we do this or do that, or it's not. You might win. Then what will happen? But seriously, if I could go back, speak up in class, you know, follow that passion, do the things that you want to do. I mean, don't commit crime, but but I don't think a lot of us are trying to commit crimes. We're just trying to be more powerful in the thing that we feel.
Yes.
Trying to put more articulation in the thoughts that are in our mind.
Absolutely.
If I could go back to 16, I would be ridiculous. I literally, I would be on something else.
Crazy. Yeah, no, I feel that. I think quite a few people have spoken on that.
Just asking me that question just made me.
But you know, at the same time, I guess the other thing is what I found in asking that question is, yes, you're asking, you're giving advice to your 16-year-old self, but that's still you.
Yeah.
So a lot of the time people will say my 16-year-old self was fearful.
Yeah.
A lot of the time that fearfulness still resides inside of you. There's that thing that you're not doing because X, Y, Z. It still stands. It's relevant. It's still valid. So,
and that's on levels. That cuts on so many levels. That's society. That's culturally. That's being a black man. Oh gosh, we need to unpack that. There are so many sections in which there are certain things that we're not expected to do, or we shouldn't be doing, or we can't get out of that box. So yeah, just be you. Be free. Get around people who appreciate you, and do that.
I think that is a solid one there, especially about being around people that appreciate you. And even on that note, and I think I've said it before, but I'll take this opportunity to say it again, is that I've always been thankful for you, for Patrick as well, because if it wasn't for you guys, this voiceover thing, no, because you guys, number one, I came in and you were like, actually, because I remember I was actually saving this story for my vlog, but I'm still gonna do it. But it's the story.
Give him a teaser.
Yeah, it's the story of how I got into voiceovers. So it's like a random call from Melvin. Can you do this? Coming in, I think it was Manny Norte's show, The Get Up, doing a Cockney geezer voiceover for that, and then I think it was you or Patrick, or both of you, but somebody said, "Have you thought about using your natural?" Because I was doing this Cockney thing, and they were like, "Actually, your normal voice sounds quite good." And I'm like, "Really? Okay." And then that was the start. And again, along the way, even when I was just coming in doing voiceovers, and then you guys are like, "So have you got an agent yet?" I wasn't even thinking about that because I was doing my 9 to 5. And then I'd get called up and say, "Oh, can you come in today?" Yeah, sure, I'll come in. And so so if it wasn't for having you guys around and that guidance, thank you.
Oh, thank you, because you blessed us with, we don't have what you have, right? So when you come into the mix and we go, hey, this guy has an element, it helps us do our jobs better because you can deliver on the mic. And I'm sure we did this to you, because every time we spotted a good voiceover, we'd go, yeah, thanks for doing that. By the way, here's another A4 sheet of paper. Could you just try this?
Yeah.
And if your director gives you an extra sheet of paper, you know that they value what you do.
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, that was...
We did that. Yeah. We weren't just trying to get more money out of you.
No, absolutely. But
yeah, but it means, and that's what this whole thing is about. We can spend years trying to compete with each other, realizing the strength is actually in all of us doing our own different things.
And I think there's also, I'm not going to get the quote right, but when I was, having a nosy around on your LinkedIn page, there's a quote at the bottom of your LinkedIn page that I thought was really powerful, and that was, "I don't need to not have a seat at the table in order for you to have a seat at the table." I know I've kind of paraphrased that a little bit, but yeah, I think that really exemplifies kind of what we're talking about here. Is like there's room for everyone, and we benefit more by being open and sharing and talking about these things. So yeah, man, it's about continuing to be that example. So thank you very much.
Thank you.